So, world order. Is it just me? But has it become increasingly difficult to have conversations with people nowadays? Maybe over the last 5 to 10 years, um, it seems to deplete your energy just to have a basic conversation with another person. The flow is broken. People can't stay on topic. Uh, you're talking about one thing, they will answer you with an anecdote regarding something totally different, something completely unrelated, and use that as an answer. I've noticed this over the last, I would say, over the last year more so than any other time. It's very difficult, and I speak to people from different countries, mostly Asia. Um, I speak to Europeans, but I seem to have this issue mostly with people in America. And I don't know what's going on as to where it's almost like the brain is garbled. It's almost like a form of dyslexia. And I'm not saying any of this as a slight. Of course, that's not what my channel is about. This isn't a trash talking channel. This is a channel of looking towards the future and progression of the planet Earth, and also, you know, uh, prophecy and how we see the world changing for the future. But one thing I noticed today that will be a problem in the future is if we're constantly losing power of thought, the inability to form a complete thought, the inability to communicate, to articulate, to engage in topics and follow the natural flow of conversation, we're in trouble. Now, no one's asking for people to speak a different language. We're just asking for you to be able to have a working order, a working ability of your native language, and that seems to have that seems to be severely affected these days. I, for one, think diet has a lot to do with it. We don't pay enough attention to our diet, but people all over the planet Earth are getting bigger. They're gaining more weight. Everything you eat affects your energy levels. It affects the way your brain processes thoughts. We're not paying attention to that. We are married to our food when we should be using other things to make our lives more worth living, more enjoyable. We shouldn't use food as a reward, but we still do. And I believe that we're paying the price. When you look at the U.S. obesity epidemic, what you see is just a much cheaper form of medicating, using food as a drug. But it's no longer, and I'll do a separate video on this because I really have strong ideas and strong theories on this because I come in contact with a lot of Americans, and the Americans of today in no way near the American of 10 years ago even. Nowhere near. The thought process is different. The the rationalism is thinking, the rational, how one approaches thought, how one debates, or in these cases, I mean, argue. How people argue today is completely different than how they argued 10 years ago. People debated more. The art of debate is gone. The skill of conversation is gone. And all of this affects interpersonal communications. All of this affects every part of our lives, and we're just so disconnected. But back to this mental handicap, this new just inability to express one's thoughts. This is a problem. This is a really big problem. This is a very big problem, and no one's No one's saying anything. It's one, we kind of noticed it in President Trump. He's not as eloquent as previous presidents, but that's fine because you don't have to have a large vocabulary to get your point across. I hope that people don't come to my channel and find that I'm talking over their head when I'm expressing just simple ideas. That's not the point of conversation. The point of conversation and the point of also this channel is to be able to communicate clearly, succinctly, and quickly to effectively pass on an idea to another person in a way, in a manner in which they can understand. Now, with whatever is going on in the U.S. and as far as diet, environment, all of this plays a part into the way that we feel, especially the way that we think, the way that we process thoughts, and even the thoughts that we have, especially the thoughts that we have. And this is a problem. This is a problem, the way that we debate, being overly emotional. A lot of that is tied to diet. A lot of that is tied to diet. The inability to have a logical conversation, a conversation based on logic, strategy. Strategy is so far gone out the window. Strategy is not just for the military. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of rationalizing. It's a way of coming to a conclusion, of forming an answer, forming a conclusion, arriving at a conclusion. You know, but yet it is tedious to have a conversation nowadays. It's almost soul sucking because you feel that the simplest the simplest idea put out there is not even being received. It's something in the other person's mind is forcing them to veer off into something else. And like I say, this is a problem beyond measure when you can't even communicate in your own language. You're in a language that you've spoken all your life, but you have a failure, an inability to communicate simple ideas. And I also talk about all the time on my channel about how suggestion is planted, how ideas are implanted into our mind. Simple thoughts can be one word, can be a phrase, and more so, I can guarantee you, symbols will be suggested and implanted more nowadays. Because if their brains are getting shut off by diet, if they have the inability to process thoughts, people who want to manipulate you mentally will just move on to images and symbols. Boom, there's no problem with that. That's another, especially since half of the world, which is male, is uh, uh, responds quicker or in more deeply to symbols and images. That's just a simple way to really go ahead and get manipulation out the way. Go ahead and just put a symbol, just flash symbols right into your mind, right into your whatever television show, whatever YouTube video you're watching. Just throw a symbol right in there. Throw it in at the beginning, the middle, the end. There you go. Put the little symbol right down at the bottom. None the wiser, because people's brains are not processing properly as they should. I'm going to end this video now, but I think that people in the West should be mindful. There's something going on. When there's too much widespread, there's a lot of debate happening, and but yet the ideas that people fight over sometimes are people are arguing over the same issues. They stand on the same side. They want the same thing, but yet they're arguing. People are too emotional, too irrational. This is how their brain is processing things. It bypasses logic and it goes straight to emotion. That's a problem. That's a problem. And I think people on that side of the world, because your food is more tampered with than probably any other country on the planet Earth. Your food has more chemicals, is subject to more, maybe radiation, just maybe all types of elements, probably than any other country on the face of the earth. and you don't think that your brain, your body is not going to reject it, it's not going to have a problem with that. But anyway, I'm going to end this video, but make this food for thought.